Hi everyone. I wanted to record something before we headed into the weekend. Now that we kind of had our first full week of the course, it's about 5:45 here, and so I want to first thank all the people who have finished their quiz. And I know there's a bunch of you online right now, hopefully working on that and getting that done. And thank you to those students who I know a few people have been added late, and they've been communicating with me that they want to get caught up, and so I'm trying to make arrangements with them to kind of release that just to them when they're ready to complete that quiz. And so we still have students being added in, and that's kind of why this course started off slowly. This is always the case every semester. We have this kind of movement in and out of the course, and so it's a challenge. That's why I didn't want to start right on day one, because those students would have been almost 2 weeks behind at this point. So they are still behind, but hopefully not as much. A couple of things to kind of reiterate and repeat. The announcement section is a key part of the course. That's where I'll be posting sometimes a video like this, or a text message, but a text announcement with things that you should be focusing on, and anything else I might supplement in terms of hoping to elaborate on what you might be finding in the activities. And also the calendar is also important, because that's where I'll put kind of key assessment dates. Just also to kind of mention again, the experience of taking an online course is, again, it's kind of neat because it's very convenient. You log on when you find the time. So some of you who do have that built into your timetable, hopefully that's when you're logging on. But the challenge is that you have to be really self-motivated and disciplined to stay on top of the material. It's so easy to say, I'll get to that tomorrow and stuff, and then it piles up, and those activities are waiting for you to kind of go through. And some of them are pretty lengthy, and some of them are challenging to do, just if you're reading text. So it's really important you stay on top of it. You don't have the luxury of having your teacher go see at lunch or after school to kind of clarify something you didn't get, and you don't have the luxury of necessarily having classmates near you to kind of, I don't get that question, or did you get this question, can you explain this to me? So it's really important that you push yourself to stay on top of the material every day. I've taught this now a few times, and the students who struggle are the ones who kind of let things go, and usually before it becomes a mountain of work that they just can't catch up on. So just letting things go a couple of days is it's like being absent from school a couple of days, and you find yourself way behind. Another thing too is the course that we're working on is brand new. It's a brand new package. The one that I used to work with in the past was much more text intensive. It was basically a textbook online, which had its advantages. There was probably a lot more content, but it was very dry. It was very challenging for some students. The new package is great because there's a lot more interactives, but it probably doesn't have as much to consolidate your understanding. There maybe aren't enough exercises. So that's why I put in the extra worksheet on independent and dependent events in the last activity. So if I do see that, as I go through each activity just to see the new design, that's what I'm noticing, and then I'll try to make sure that I put stuff in that hopefully will help. But you also, and I appreciate those students who are communicating with me about, where, if they do need some clarification on things. The other thing too is I've opened up the next unit 2, the first activity. Now this is a really important activity. It builds on some of the stuff we learned in probability, that first unit, and that first unit is just laying the foundation of what probability is. And really, when you boil it down, it's really simple. Probability is just basically how many ways can an event happen, that goes in the numerator, over how many total outcomes are there. Okay, so for example, if I roll 2 dice, the total number of outcomes is 36. That's all the things that can happen. But if I'm interested in, say, rolling a 7, then that's 6 possible ways of doing that. So 6 over 36. That's all that probability is. Now the challenges come in trying to count when the events become much more complicated. And that's what's going to happen in the next unit, is the events become much more challenging to count by using just very simple techniques like a tree diagram or just counting things. So we're going to learn ways to count that are much more efficient and can handle bigger events. So I've opened up the first activity, but my expectation is that that's what you're going to be working on Tuesday. But if you want to get a head start on it, please do. There is a little bit of some questions on counting things with a large number of outcomes, and we see why tree diagrams quickly become a challenge. So a good example of this would be, for example, how many license plates are possible in Ontario if it starts with 4 letters followed by 3 digits? We can actually work that out using some of the techniques we're going to learn in this first activity, but doing it by tree diagram is insane because you do not want to draw out all those branches. You would be going on it for about a year before you actually figured it out. So you're going to learn techniques where you can count those very quickly. It's usually just a matter of multiplying some numbers together. So the way we solve these problems is super easy. You're just multiplying things, but it's getting your head around, okay, what number should I be multiplying to get these answers? So in the final section of that first activity, there's a couple of questions that you are supposed to submit to your portfolio. I'll try to do the solutions just so you can check and see, did I get those questions right? So now just a quick word to finish up on, because a couple of people have been asking about discussions, portfolios. You know, what happens with those? Are they marked or whatever? You got to think of your portfolio almost like your online binder. This would be like the notes you were taking in class. And so it's meant for you to kind of put your work in one place. So I'm not going in and marking them. So it's meant for me also to see how well you're engaging with the content. So that's all it is. And the same thing with discussions. Discussions are just like if you were in a face-to-face classroom and you were able to ask me a question, or able to, if you were doing maybe a task with your group, you know, talking with your group about how to solve a problem. But they are not, again, something that I mark. What they do tell me about is your learning skills. And so just like in class, when I notice students who are engaged with the learning and they're answering questions or they're asking questions and they're working productively with their group, that tells me how well they're collaborating. And that's one of your learning skills. So just like in day school, where you have a report card that has your mark and a comment and your learning skills, that's the same thing that happens in an online environment. So the way I can gauge that is through discussions, and how well are you engaging with the content in the course is how many of those assignments are you completing. I'm gonna wrap it up there. So as I said, you can get started on that first activity on Unit 2. If you want an idea of kind of the next big assessment date at the end of the unit, it'll be March 1st, so a couple of weeks away still. So I'll kind of give you pacing for each of the activities. This unit's a little longer than the first one as we introduce all these different counting techniques. So it's really important you stay on top of it. But March 1st will be our target date for the end of the unit to get the final assessment done. All right. Have a great Family Day weekend, and again, try to communicate with me either through the email within the course. Some people are starting using the Messenger tool within the course, so try to keep doing that. I do teach day course as well, so I try to stay on top of it, but I do get to all those messages. All right, have a great long weekend.